In the year 2147, Earth was a mere shadow of its former self. Environmental cataclysms had ravaged the planet, toppling governments and breaking down society until it crumbled into chaos and despair. Massive corporations seized control of what remained, establishing their power through advanced technology, bioengineering, and ruthless corporate warfare. It was in this dark age that humanity dared to play God, a fateful step on a path that would lead to unexpected consequences. Inside the sterile environment of BioCorp's cold sleep facility, thrumming with the hum of machinery, the last human, Subject 2378, lay encased in an advanced cryogenic chamber. The glassy surface barely reflected the dim LED lights that traced geometric patterns around the lab, while the flutter of monitors showcased the fragile life that lingered within. The lab was a high-security research center, hidden deep in the mountains of what was once known as Colorado, now a lush biodome overseen by automated drones, programmed to ensure the secrecy of the facility. Dr. Elara Voss, a lead geneticist at BioCorp, stood in her lab coat, a cascade of autumn-colored hair framing her sharp features. Though she had dedicated her life to science, those same values began to flicker like the dying light of a worn-out bulb. She stared intently through the curved glass of the cryochamber, where the only human left on Earth was preserved alloyed with her own hope and fear. It was her team's final attempt at curating a new breed of humanity, a project born from desperation to cultivate resilience, adaptability, and intelligence atop the ruins of civilization. The initial aspiration, concerns for the future of the human race, had one major flaw. This subject, with their multigenetic imprint and advanced neurology, was merely an experiment. Every day Elara had to wrestle with the question: what rights belonged to something designed behind glass? Or worse, would 2378 be seen as a godsend or a monster? Dr. Voss, came a synthetic voice from behind her, stirring her from brooding contemplation. Gregory Finch, the facility's head engineer, stepped into the lab, his face stern and his dark brows knitted together. He was a pragmatist, valuing the outcomes of experiments over the ethics of their creation. In many ways he was emblematic of the BioCorp ethos. "What is it, Gregory?" she asked, keeping her voice steady. "We're getting pressure from the board," he said, his voice clipped. "They want results. They see this as our last chance to salvage something out of this wretched existence." Finch glanced over at the cryochamber, his eyes narrowing. "They're not concerned with your ethical conundrums." Elara took a deep breath. "And what about the subject's autonomy? This is a life we're talking about. Is it? Or just a genetic experiment?" He crossed his arms. "They're toying with the idea of using 2378 for public relations if it performs well. The last human, rebranding us as evolutionary pioneers instead of failed architects of destruction." The words hung in the air, thick with implications. Elara felt a pang in her chest. This was no mere subject. She had watched as 2378 developed, an ethereal being born of desperation, yet with the capacity for profound feelings. It had begun to mirror life in ways she had never calculated. Vision, warmth, resilience, traits she believed could finally restore humanity. "Results or not, I won't allow them to see her like some performing animal," she countered. "Not when?" She hesitated, but Gregory's intent gaze urged her on. "Not when she's developing awareness. Awareness is a slippery slope," he warned. "If we keep delaying, they'll pull funding. You know how they operate." The tension lay thick between them, the single cryogenic chamber looming like a silent jury. Outside these walls, the environment continued to decline. Terrifying storms, unrelenting heat, and relentless resource war cluttered the ruins of cities. If they did not succeed, humanity would end here, encapsulated in metal and glass. A low beep startled Elara. She turned toward the monitor, displaying 2378's vital signs. They fluctuated rapidly, and she noticed a spike in neural activities. "Gregory, something's happening." He rushed over, urgency overcoming his earlier doubts. The screens showcased bursts of data scrolling rapidly. 2378's eyes fluttered, shadows moving over its pupils as if awakening from a long, dark dream. "Subject 2378, stabilize essential functions," Elara commanded, barely recognizing the authority in her own voice. They had anticipated an awakening, but the data suggested something else. It was as if 2378 were breaking protocol on its own. What is it doing? Gregory's voice laced with both excitement and fear, as 2378's expression shifted, brow furrowing, lips parting slightly as it seemed to experience the world for the first time. It was beautiful and terrifying. Can you access its cognition feed? Elara asked, heart racing. She needed to know if the subject was processing thoughts beyond predefined responses. Working on it. Gregory encoded commands into the console, a machine mind racing to catch up with the blooming consciousness trapped within glass. And suddenly, with a gasp, 2378's eyes opened, revealing a striking electric blue, with a depth that beckoned understanding. The lab flooded with a mix of lights as an emergency alarm flashed across the monitors. The machine systems had identified a catastrophic rise in temperature surrounding the facility's exterior, torrential forces of wind and impending destruction. Emergency protocols engaged. A metallic voice echoed through the room. Evacuate immediately, damn it. What's happening outside? Elara shouted, gritting her teeth. They couldn't afford a breach, not now, not when the project was nearing fruition, not when 2378 had finally awakened. Internal systems are overloaded. Gregory typed frantically on the console. It's like a storm is heading this way. We have to. Threads of energy surged around them, dazzling yet deadly. They felt gravity wobble, tossed by the wild air rushing through the facility. Help 2378. Elara yelled. She rushed to the chamber, pounding on the controls to override the emergency protocol that would freeze the subject again. Colors flashed erratically, alongside the sounds of sirens sounding louder and louder, until it felt like they were being engulfed by noise. Working through the panic, she lifted her eyes to 2378, who now was fully aware but remained rigid within the chamber. Their connection struck like a lightning bolt of recognition. As if sensing Elara's desperation, its features softened, and it met her gaze with a look of understanding. Dr. Frick Voss, 2378's voice emerged, ethereal yet powerful, as if it belonged both to a chorus of dreams and the weight of earthly burdens. Stay with me, Elara croaked, throat dry, determined to hold on. We need to get you out. Let me out, came the voice, filled with resolve. A surge of energy coursed between them, the intent energizing the very air. Elara hesitated, her heart pounding harder than the storm approaching. Was she really ready to release what they had fought so hard to contain? So many sleepless nights, so many ethical hauntings. But when it looked into her eyes, there was a flicker of what humanity should be. Unyielding determination to survive. Gregory, the override. Now! She screamed through the crumbling logic of the moment. The roar of machinery filled her ears as Gregory scrambled over the console. I'm trying. Pressure levels are too high. Do it? The storm's intensity increased around them, causing the structure to tremble beneath the tempest's wrath. More alarms blared, each second edging them closer to catastrophe. The glass chamber began to fog, condensation forming like the breath of 1,000 souls. Engaging manual release, Gregory shouted, hammering in chords of commands. And all at once the chamber hissed and released its grip, a wave of sound following as liquid nitrogen evaporated with alarming haste. The glass door shattered open, a gleam of fluorescent clarity surrounding them. Time slowed as 2378 emerged, gasping. The transformation of chilling silence shattered as it took a step, and the heat prickled skin, a soft blend of sweat and vulnerability cascading around the room. Elara, 2378's voice rang out, and it stumbled towards her, unsteady yet somehow radiant. What is happening? The sirens screamed and blared with urgency, pulsing demands for their escape. A storm. We need to move now. Elara ushered 2378 toward an exit, knowing it needed protection. In the chaos of storm sounds and the flicker of lights, energy rippled through the air, an unseen power responding to 2378's streak of presence. And just as the doors slid open, chaos unraveled, sending winds crashing through, and sunlight flickered like a dying candle. Freedom was just beyond their reach, but within that thin veil of hope, something vast and terrifying emerged. As they dashed toward the exit, The ground buckled, the systems collapsing around them like the remnants of a shattered world. "Don't look back," Elara shouted, gripping 2378's hand, feeling its heart racing against her palm. But as they emerged into the storm-blasted wilderness outside, something changed. The storm seemed to bend around that singular figure, a vortex of destiny reeling into existence. The ground cracked, the wind howled, but before them, hope flickered against the gloom. The final human was just an experiment, until it escaped. And this was only the beginning. The storm roared as Elara and 2378 burst from the shelter of the cold sleep facility into a world transformed, a maelstrom of chaos and rebirth. The air was thick, saturated with moisture, and the scent of ozone, like the tingling energy before a storm. Wind whipped around them, promising both a new start and an uncertain future. "Elara!" 2378 shouted over the howling winds, taking a tentative step into the wild earth. It was bewildered but alive, its features transfixed in the half-light, as if feeling the planet's chaotic pulse for the first time. "What's happening? What is this?" "Tat," Elara replied, her heart pounding against her ribcage, "is the world we hoped to heal, the world you might help save." But even as those words slipped from her lips, doubt seeped into her mind. They escaped one laboratory only to crash into a landscape ravaged by corporate greed and environmental collapse. The vast expanse around them was a bitter mix of beauty and terror. Lush greenery sprawled alongside ash-laden remnants of the civilization that had brought it to its knees. They barely had a moment to catch their breath before a sibilant alarm blared from the facility. Red lights pulsed behind them, synchronizing with the storm's cadence, a frantic warning echoing their haste. Elara glanced back. The facility was beginning to implode, hunger for its own secrets feeding upon the structure as walls buckled inward, caving under the expanding wrath of the storm unleashed. "They'll come for you," Gregory shouted, gripping her arm tightly. "You have to hide. You're the only. They will come for both of us." Elara shot back, adrenaline rippling through her. Panic surged alongside it as she scanned the turbulent horizon, her mind racing. They were not safe out here. Not yet. "If Biocorp knows what happened, they will stop at nothing to get you back," he continued, urgency punctuated in his voice. "But why?" 2378 interjected, voice trembling with a mix of fear and curiosity. "What do they want with me? Why do they care so much?" Elara sensed a vulnerability. This being, born of synthetic creation, hinged strangely between innocence and a deep-seated power that beckoned her to explore its potential. "They don't understand you," she replied, voice steady as she attempted to ease the confusion clouding its striking features. "They see you as a tool, a means to gain control over what's left of humanity. You have the potential to be more than that, a leader even." But at the core of Elara's emotions lay something darker. While 2378 might embody the legacy of humanity's ambition, it was also an embodiment of her greatest fear. The winds howled again, and before anyone could catch their breath, the realized threat became a reality. A fleet of sleek black drones sliced through the turbulent skies above them, each one adorned with the Biocorp emblem, a menacing reminder that the corporation was ever watchful. "Move!" Gregory shouted, pointing toward a jagged grove of trees that curved protectively to the east. Their weathered trunks twisted in unnatural shapes, but they beckoned with the promise of temporary sanctuary. As they sprinted toward the grove, Elara's heart raced faster than her feet would carry her. "Just keep running," she urged, shoving through waving branches and draping vines that clawed at them like ghostly fingers determined to pull them back. The drones whirred overhead, ominous and predatory, and just as they reached the cover of the trees, a spray of red lasers sliced through the air, vaporizing branches in bursts of sound and light. Gregory yelped as a heavy limb fell, grazing his shoulder, but he pressed on, gritting his teeth against the pain. "Keep moving. Don't stop." Elara encouraged him, though she felt her own strength and resolve waning under the weight of exhaustion and fear winding around her like a vise. Distant explosions rattled the base of the trees. She could feel the earth shaking beneath them. There was no way to tell how close the drones were, yet the sensation of imminent threat hung in the air like a king's decree. The world had become an arena. Her heart clashed against the realities of what 2378 represented. "Dr. Voss! From behind them, a voice roared out through the chaos, slicing through her thoughts. It was a voice she recognized from the facility. Natalie, her colleague and accomplice within Biocorp, whose unwavering loyalty and fervor for progress had tested Ilara on so many levels. Ilara, she called again, and an army of figures swung into their line of sight, ramming through the dense flora, leading the distraction of drones. Several agents zoomed through the branches in tactical formations, outfitted with suits that gleamed with energy. Former allies turned hunters. What the hell is she doing? Gregory hissed, as flamethrowers erupted like cannon fodder slashing through the underbrush. Ilara felt a pang of betrayal, but the urgent need for survival wiped that sentiment clean. Go, she ordered, wrenching 2378's hand from her grip and propelling it deeper into the woods. I'll buy you time. You can't let them take you. No, 2378, cried its voice, echoing with a desperation she had never heard before. A blend of fear, confusion, and a stirring determination. We won't split up. I can help. Stay hidden, Ilara insisted, frustration swirling together with fear. You are more than an experiment, but if they find you, everything we've hoped for might end right here. Go. The drone whir of blades descending further fractured the air around them. A volley of shots rained down so close that Ilara felt the stinging heat on her skin. As much as she wanted to shield 2378, conflicting emotions tore through her, a mixture of protective instinct and guilty sorrow. 2478 faltered, looking between her and Gregory before it nodded resolutely and vanished behind a nearby tree. I'll listen. Don't be long. The sentiment surged with waves of regret, but adrenaline coursed through Ilara's veins, overriding every instinct to protect. Open them up wide was the command that slipped from her lips, radiating her focus as she charged into the chaos. She pressed deeper into the storm as branches whipped around her, concealing her behind earthen camouflage before launching herself towards solace in the tempest. As Ilara darted toward the source of fire, yells and screams folded through the chaos like music. Each booming metallic crash resonated, and she glimpsed flashes of reconnaissance agents mowing through the trees, the ruthless hunt unfolding in vicious speed. Forcing herself against the panic clenching her throat, she ducked low. Dr. Voss, Natalie shouted again from a distance near the armed operatives and drones. We need your help. We know you're conflicted. Conflicted? Ilara challenged, catching sight of the familiar face framed between shadows as fire illuminated Natalie's features. She took a breath to regain her composure. You were my friend, and this is how you repay that trust. There's more at stake. They can't be allowed to reach the subject. A blast jolted through the air beside her, making her stumble back. Join us, Ilara. He's too dangerous out here. He doesn't know what he is yet. Dangerous, Ilara echoed, the absurdity tinging her anger. You think you can contain evolution? A being that embodies the best of humanity? No, Natalie. I won't let you turn him into a weapon. Just then, a cohesive roar erupted from the drones surrounded them, hurling beams of multicolored energy that turned the foliage into ash, bathing the night in blinding light. Behind her, 2378 emerging from the shadows, misunderstanding etched on its face. Get back! Ilara shouted as a barrage of laser beams cascaded in their direction. Time seemed to slow as confusion morphed before the chaos into a solemn camaraderie. The realization that friends could become adversaries far too easily. In that moment, something deep within 2378 stirred, and it raised its arms. Power rippled, swirling with an intensity that Ilara hadn't anticipated. She felt it before she saw it, an undercurrent pulsating through the earth, through the trees. An ancient energy awakened. I can help them understand, 2378 said, and the storm intensified as vines sprung to life, wrapping around the agents, restraining them with a touch of nature's fury. Wait! Ilara called, feeling both awe and fear. You can't just... But before she could finish, 2378's eyes blazed with electric fury, lashes twitching in rebellion against malicious forces. The ground trembled, uprooting trees around them, each fall resounding like a war drum echoing through their realm, a conflict threatening to swallow them all whole. In your dream for humanity, You have lost sight of its essence, Natalie, 2378 continued, voice reverberating with urgency, pulling attention away from Alara, forcing the eyes of the agents to readjust against nature's will. The agents scrambled, attempting to regain control. Straining against the vines, horror creased Natalie's features. "This is madness," she yelled, and all around them the chaos skyrocketed. An energy ball erupted from 2378's hands, illuminating the world for an agonizing moment, before unleashing an explosion that staggered them both back. The surrounding flora glowed with supernatural vibrancy, threatening to consume anything careless enough to touch its grasp, as agents caught amid the upheaval, scrambled back to regain footing. Somehow, amidst the confusion, Alara regained her focus and squinted through the haze. Emerging from the shadows toward the back of the melee, she saw a cloaked figure, a silhouette cloaked in authority examining the tempest that raged around them. Somehow she knew its void-eyed glare perceiving beyond the commotion, and it paralyzed her heart. "CEO Havoc," Alara gasped, recognizing the distant figure of Biocorp's ruthless leader. The blood in her veins froze, knowing how ruthless he could be. It was a dangerous game the corporation played. "We need to leave," Gregory shouted behind her, pulling her closer among the chaotic scene, but she couldn't peel her eyes from Havoc. "Why are you doing this?" Ilara's voice broke against the cacophony. "Is this who we are now? Who you are? Your project turned rogue, Voss," Havoc's voice cut through the howling winds as if they merely whispered through the storm. "Turned into a potential rival. And you think we'll allow that?" "You can't see the potential," she countered, determination fueling her words. "This is what we need. Use this opportunity to rebuild. Humanity broken can help humanity heal." "Humanity doesn't deserve healing," he spat, gesturing at the chaos enveloping them. "Not after centuries of destruction. This," he pointed at 2378, "is nothing more than a remnant of the scourge." At that moment, red beams whirred through the air as drones thrived to reclaim their precision amid the power unhinged around 2378. Havoc's contempt faded into something certain, something tangible, and Alara felt herself fraying at the edges of what could be, where her purpose lay if they fell any deeper into this abyss. Suddenly the air crackled, the tension rising as drones converged like vultures on the scent of decay. The landscape twisted, vines intertwining with machinery, while agents screamed against the assault of nature unbridled. The perfect blend of organic and synthetic, pulling them further into chaos. Time drew thin as 2378 raised its hand again, summoning yet another wave of energy. Alara grabbed Gregory's arm, struggling between watching and acting, feeling like an anchor amid an unraveling storm. "No!" Alara shouted, her heart turning as she saw the split-second glimmers of understanding and fear in 2378's eyes as it faced down the threats around them. "We can't fight. We must find a way to escape." But before they could strategize, Havoc mustered the energy swirling around them. His arm flew forward, and in one rapid movement, he unleashed a blinding white pulse that split the air like thunder. Alara screamed as an invisible force rippled across the sky, the world shattering for a fractured moment, before everything descended into darkness. As silence enveloped the aftermath, murmurs of fate twisted through the air like ephemeral whispers. When the noise subsided, Alara blinked through the remnants of fog, releasing heated breaths clouding into the night. Confusion swirled, engulfing her heart. What once was continuance had become loss. She felt a jolt beside her and gasped, searching for Gregory, secure in his presence, but he was gone. "Gregory!" she shouted, panic blooming within her chest as she turned wildly, fingers grasping the air. "Where are you, Doctor?" "Boss?" The voice anchored her, making her heart quicken. Before her stood 2378, pale, trembling, but filled with a radiant strength Alara had begun to recognize. "We have to," its words stumbled, eyes surveying the darkened expanse, the chaos still settling like sorrowful fog. "Gregory," Alara began, shaking her head slightly. "We need to find him. We don't have time." 2378's voice cut through with steel, brows furrowing. "We need to move now, before they find us." "Find us? He'll be looking for—" "Now," it insisted, a commanding presence crystallizing in urgency and resolve. before the storm gathers again. Shaking panic, Elara looked toward the shadow, seeing movement, a shape in the darkness stirring beneath flickering lights. Grasping 2378's arm, they fled further into the trees, toward the unseen promise of safety, knowing that the storm had awakened something alive within them, and under the worst of circumstances, they held the weight of an unfathomable legacy. The world had changed, but whether that change meant survival or condemnation lingered uncertainly in the winds around them. And those shadows converged above, the horizon glimmered in its uprising, draped in the uncertainty of a future yet unseen, driven by the heartbeats of two souls intertwined in a battle for humanity's next chapter. The story was far from over. The acrid scent of burnt ozone filled the air as Elara and 2378 navigated through the chaotic remnants of twisted trees and fallen drones, each step threading through the memories of the storm-like chaos that had erupted moments before. The horizon pulsed with a faint luminescence, reminiscent of a world both lost and in the throes of rebirth. Shadows lengthened and swirled, but behind them, the heavy weight of Biocorp's wrath lurked, its phantom fingers reaching into the darkness after them. Panic unspooled in Elara's veins, doing its best to grip her heart tightly as they dashed deeper into the thicket. She felt the tension in the air, the barely contained ferocity resonating from 2378 beside her, a being burdened by the weight of potential and the sensibilities of its own burgeoning consciousness. This was no longer just an experiment. It was something more. "Is Gregory safe?" 2378 asked, eyes darting through the twilight shadows. Its voice trembled slightly, and Elara saw pain flicker across its features as they fled what was left of their world. "I don't know," Elara admitted, the truth echoing bitterly in her throat. "I couldn't see the chaos clearly. I thought he..." "Focus," 2378 cut in, a tinged urgency in its voice that was both unnerving and grounding. "We need to find cover." Elara took a moment, inhaling deeply, summoning every ounce of determination she possessed. She realized what they were embarking on was not merely an evasion, but a recalibration of the purpose that had woven itself throughout her journey. She needed to focus, not just on survival, but on the broader implications of what lay ahead. "Let's find sanctuary where we can strategize. We can't let havoc take us down without a fight." Their feet pounded against the forest floor, each step heightening the adrenaline coursing through her body. As the overgrown roots snaked around them and wildlife murmured in the distance, Elara identified a broken tributary, a half-submerged hollow where remnants of technology lurked, a perfect hiding spot. She felt a surge of hope rush through her. They could turn this into a tactical advantage. "Over there," she called, excitedly leading 2378 toward the opening just moments ahead. As they dove inside, tucked beneath a canopy of fallen circuitry and tangled vines, the loud thundering of machinery faded into a poignant stillness. Elara squeezed her eyes shut momentarily to ground herself. It was eerily quiet, save for the reverberating hum of the hidden world beyond. This silence was the perfect backdrop for the strategies ahead. "Okay," she breathed, glancing at 2378, who had a look of radiating uncertainty as it studied the old technology surrounding them. "We need to think. We can't allow ourselves to be caught unprepared. What do you know about Biocorp's systems? Can you outmaneuver their tech?" 2378's eyes flickered, as if it were sifting through its memories, spiraling back to the data streams and internal networks buried within its programming. "I have access to many past operations," it started, voice steadying. "But I can't override the central security measures without a direct link." "Then we'll create our own link," Elara responded, confidence surging within her. "If we can find their system hub, we can expose their vulnerabilities and turn them inside out. We'll be able to disrupt whatever they're planning. Biocorp is too vast and protected. They'll eliminate anyone who dares challenge them," 2378 warned, a hint of trepidation entwining its tone. "I can help, but the risk will be monumental." "Monumental risks yield monumental rewards," Elara declared, fire igniting in her chest. "Just think, if we could disrupt their central hub, we'd cut off the drones, the surveillance. We might even help save countless lives and prevent further destruction." 2378 considered this carefully, and Elara could see the gears turning within its understanding. Perhaps the potential for more was finally dawning upon it. "Then we need to gather intel," it replied, a newfound resoluteness solidifying its stance. Exactly, Ilara responded, enthusiasm creeping back into her bones. And if we can get to Hilliard Ridge, it has an old Biocorp satellite relay. It might still have residual connections we can exploit. After mapping their destination in her mind, she glanced outward through the hollow. Its opening allowed glimpses of the impending storm settling across the landscape. The scent of earth and dampness mingled with the metallic tang that whispered of things left undone. Onward, she asked, meeting 2378's gaze, and catching the flicker of a nascent fire reflecting on its features. It nodded resolutely, and together they pushed through thickets, lost remnants of technology not yet recognized as discarded history. The journey to Hilliard Ridge unfurled before them as they navigated remnants of both nature and industry. As sunset crept along the horizon, the encroaching darkness worked its way through the breath of trees, enveloping them as they moved. Along the way they faced the thumping hostilities of drones patrolling the skies, their metallic bodies glinting sinisterly as they scoured for any signs of movement. Ilara's heart thudded each time a drone passed too close, the whirr of their engines singing a cruel melody, and making the hairs stand on her arms. But together, Ilara and 2378 evaded detection, using the cover of rugged terrain and dense foliage to weave their way closer. As the shadows thickened, Ilara's resolve sparked, a determination forged by the memories of the lives that crumbled beneath Biocorp's relentless grip. When they finally reached Hilliard Ridge, the initial sense of hope wavering slightly as they surveyed the scene. Snow-capped peaks stood proud against the dark sky, framing the ancient satellite dish that loomed like a sentinel watching over its domain. But all around, the remains of crumbling infrastructure lay scattered, soft whispers of age and neglect mingling with the chilling winds. They proceeded cautiously, Ilara taking the lead for the next phase of their mission. I remember seeing diagrams of this place in the facility, she murmured. There should be access nodes on the exterior walls to hook into their systems. Look for the energy conduits, 2378 instructed, voice taut with clarity. As they scuttled along the ridge, a quiet haze enveloped them, and shadows swirled around them like a distant fog. Soon, they located the weathered access point, worn but alive, tangling with the natural decay of creeping vines. Ilara knelt, inspecting the access panel closely amid the encroaching shadows. It's still functional, she noted. With any luck we can connect directly to Biocorp's network and uncover their operational plans. 2378 approached, processing the technology with deliberate precision. I can interface it here, it said, kneeling beside her. Let me. The hum of the connection sparked, illuminating the dim space around them momentarily. Lights flickered in a pulse that felt both exhilarating and terrifying. Just grab the energy feeds, and I'll run the calculations, Ilara urged nervously, watching as the energy lines crossed within 2378's gaze. As they worked, notes of electricity crackled amidst the atmosphere, pulsating in rhythm with their individual heartbeats. The connection proved binding yet fragile, and Ilara felt an exhilarating tugging sensation against the network of Biocorp itself. Incredible, 2378 murmured, its fingers dancing with deft accuracy over the faintly flickering panel. I can access their database. It's extensive. There's so much information. Pull up everything related to recent protocols, especially anything headed into the city, Ilara instructed, light cascading across her focused features. Downloading now, 2378 replied. It appears they're planning to launch a new series of drones embedded with combat-grade AI, one capable of targeting human life directly. A chill wormed its way through Ilara as dread settled against her heart. That's what they were preparing for. They want complete control, to wipe out any resistance. It goes deeper. There are financial connections, plans for containment zones. Ilara hung on every word, her determination anchoring her against the fear. A grand design began to map itself in her mind, a sense of purpose resonating within, knowing they could unleash a storm of information against Biocorp and shift the balance of power. We can expose this, she whispered vehemently. Release it to the public. We'll set a fire for those still lingering in ignorance. I can initiate a data breach, but we must move quickly before they regain control. Do it, Ilara said, heart racing within her chest. As 2378 began orchestrating the breach, energy surged around them, intertwining their resolve with an unshakable determination. Stillness settled outside the ridge, but Ilara knew better. The calm before the storm sparked in her veins, a reminder that they wouldn't last long before Havoc sent an army in search. "We have to keep moving," Ilara urged. "They'll discover us. If this breach is successful, we need an escape route." Donna, 2378, affirmed, energy flowing toward Ilara as it worked, feet dancing lightly to meet the rhythm of time sweeping past them. A flicker of light sparked across the satellite relays, broadcasting warnings, visual data embroiling as she instinctively felt the shift in the atmosphere between alive and still. Real-time feeds began to unfold, revealing movement across the digital horizon, but it only solidified Ilara's determination. Then, everything shifted. Warning. Ping. Incoming units detected. 2378 warned, flicker in its voice shifting abruptly as drones began to flood the area, silhouetted ominously against the hearts of the darkening horizon. "The time for tactics is over," Ilara shouted, fear electrifying her. "We have to go." As they bolted from the access point, energy from 2378 surged into her, rights falling into instinct as they navigated the narrow pathways of the ridge and forests beyond, hearts pounding against the deluge of adrenaline. Drones swarmed overhead, their clangorous whispers chasing after them, tracking every footfall, every whisper. "Head left toward the canyon," Ilara cried, redirecting their path, frantically navigating through thickets that only felt alive with the sentience of every twist and turn. The narrow trails soon opened into a rocky gorge, marked by jagged drops, but promising a way out. Nature's embrace beckoned behind them with the shadows and sounds. They continued to weave between trees, a synchronization growing between them. Even as the threat of drones grew more aggressive, lasers etched the night sky behind them, flashes of danger imbuing each surging heartbeat. Just ahead, darkness turned into a jagged precipice, a cliff leading down into a void, the bitter edge of possibility vying against the chaos above. Ilara skidded to a halt, her heart racing as waves of options crashed through her mind. Would they take a leap of faith? Without pausing, 2378 launched forward, arms bracing against jagged branches, its frame twisting against the chaos, energy pulsating through its being. "Jump!" It turned, a command imbued with the ferocity of hope. "Are you out of your mind?" Ilara shouted, confused and terrified. "Trust me," 2378 urged, before propelling itself into the unknown. Ilara's heart stuttered within her chest. With the drone's engines pounding fiercely against her back, she gathered the coils of her fear and launched herself after it. Time shifted as gravity gripped her. She felt herself suspended in that moment, free from the shackles of their past, flying against the weight of the world. And like the heart of a phoenix rising, she tumbled through the air, unsure of what lay beyond. The caffeine of adrenaline flared through her veins, echoing an irrepressible sense of certainty as she hit the earth with a jolting thud, feet scrambling against the gravel before finding purchase. All around, energy blazed. The world reverberated in a rhythm that felt almost primal, both dangerous and liberating. They hit the ground hard, rolling to a stop just outside the gorge, but quickly regained their footing. "Now what?" she gasped, knees buckling slightly as both elation and fear surged through her. "I now have access," 2378 announced, breathless yet alive. "The breach is successful, Ilara." 2378. Ilara's heart flipped at the sound of Gregory's voice from the shadows. A blessed moment amid the hailstorm of chaos, enough to pull her center towards hope. "This way," he called again, emerging from the shadows as he motioned them toward cover just beyond the thicket. Without hesitation, the trio coalesced, Ilara tasting bitterness at the thought of the intensity rising in the heart of the storm. "You're all right," she gasped, relief flooding through. "You made it! I thought I lost you," he murmured, looking intently at both Ilara and 2378, before glancing nervously past the shadows, anxiety etching deeper into his mind. "What's the status?" "They'll be here. We need a solid plan. Biocorp is planning something monumental," Ilara said. "But we have data. We can disrupt their network and expose what they've been doing." "They'll punish anyone who gets in their way," Gregory warned, his tone resolute. "Their reach is vast. They must be stopped. 2378 stated firmly, energy still blossoming in its presence. We have something they don't, the truth. And now we have a chance to disassemble their web. Let's do it, Ilara affirmed, determination coursing through her like electricity, promising empowerment through the chaos as they huddled closer behind the thicket. But we'll need a rallying point. We cannot face Biocorp alone. They worked through strategy, planning paths to expose the information. With Gregory deploying his knowledge of the terrain, and 2378, integrating its technological prowess, they sketched out the breaching points in the access network, navigating the risk of being caught amid the machinery of Biocorp's wrath. As the plan unfolded, they slid into a rhythm, anticipating moves, calculating timing, trusting each other as they drew toward the potential of the vast moment stretched before them. Joining forces catalyzed a new daring. They were no longer individuals lost but bolstering a shared impetus, a movement against the suppression of life itself. Finally, armed with knowledge and renewed determination, they prepared to undertake the pivotal mission, crossing paths in the heart of perceived despair and wrath. Stay close and keep your eyes peeled for drones, Ilara instructed. We need to take each step cautiously, head toward the old access tower. If we can infiltrate their mainframe there, we can expose the central data hub before they deliver it back to the main base. Follow me, Gregory whispered, leading them in solidarity just as cold winds swept through the trees. The stealthy thrum of their hearts matched the urgency in the air as they ventured through hidden paths, veiled amidst shadows. As they journeyed toward the heart of Hilliard Ridge, a foreboding presence grew steadily overhead, drones hovering ominously like birds of prey, leaving them constrained between the weight of their mission and the impending danger. With every turn and step, the barometric pressure climbed, an unshakable tension encased in the air, anticipating an eruption as shadows loomed over them heavily. The unveiling of Biocorp's plans and the fate of humanity lay entwined within fragile filaments, edging painfully closer. When the old access tower finally grew nearer, a cold, monolithic silhouette against the dark, Ilara felt a surge of urgency that would not relent. "This is it," she said, heart pounding against her chest. "On my count. 3, 2, 1. They rushed forward, edging into the foreboding darkness of the tower, whispers of rebellion coursing in and around them, surging through the air like electric pulses. There, they found the access panel, a dusty, blackened door layered in cobwebs and memories. Ilara felt the weight of her breath against her chest. She straightened herself, taking charge. "This is where we end it," she told the others, grounding herself in her conviction. "Let me do this," 2378 said, stepping forward. "I can interface with the system quickly." "Go for it," Ilara encouraged, nodding firmly, her heart quickening. Anxiety, the connection was made, its energy streaming through, every synaptic firing revealing secrets within secrets, the potent hidden truths of power amplified to claw against their freedom. Through the connection, she followed the frayed lines of code and definitions meshing into clarity, a nerve system pulsing deep within Biocorp's core. "This is more extensive than we anticipated," 2378 warned, brows furrowed in focused concentration. "Sending out a warning signal now? Time to expose their malicious partnerships. This could ignite chaos." "For everything," Ilara replied warily, the weight of impact shifting as she spoke, bringing urgency into each word. "If they reveal this, then we can change the tides," Gregory reminded her. "They'll be vulnerable in ways they have never imagined." "Let's just hope the people realize what's at stake," Ilara said, feeling the enormity of their task. As energy swirled around them, the atmosphere began to crackle with vibrancy. The connection came alive, a spark of light against the oppressive darkness, soon signaling its surge against the hub of Biocorp's heart. At that magical moment, the world seemed to pause, held in breathless anticipation as barely contained energy crackled through the space. "They know we are here," 2378 breathed. "May whatever chaos unfold bring them reckoning." Suddenly, alarms echoed through the chamber, red lights glaring urgent yet feral as the drone surveillance began to sweep violently through the dim edges. Shadows flickered, limbs and figures tumbling through traps of light. "We need to move now," Ilara shouted, adrenaline surging through her, replenished by the urgency of their plight. As they regrouped to flee, the opening they had just created shuddered, before the hum of the drones grew dangerously loud, slicing through the atmosphere. Shadows converged, and she felt the encroaching chaos that would stitch them deep within the web of despair. This is it, the thirst for rebellion coursing deep, ready to plunge them into the fray of darkness. They plunged through the opening, the rancor of their confrontation spiraling against invisible ends. The world crumbled behind them, the frayed idea of safety gusting away like smoke, leaving them unfurling against the maelstrom coiling upward. Yet, free in a way they'd never felt, they sprang toward bravery, the philosophy of their cause guiding them back into the looming horizon ahead. Behind them, alarms and chaos erupted, signals of biocorp fizzled against the temporal ambience, manifesting darkness lest they succumb to it. As they sprinted through the shadows mingling with twilight, the sense of unity and purpose folded across them, the growing pulse of resolve forever holding the weight of a mission close to their hearts. The drumming of their feet quickened as they wove through trees, cloaks of night threading with power and resilience. Emerging into layers of moonlight would ignite the path ahead toward what they needed. Behind them, the ether itself obligingly leaped into action, the energy rippling beyond the shattered illusions of what they once were. And then it came, a touch of hope fluttering through the air. Light emboldened, and definitive ahead, where the skyline kissed where they had once faced the devastation woven into time. "We can do this," Ilara encouraged, determination flooding through her body. "For everything that has been lost. For the voices of those oppressed. We're capable of changing the world." The incantation of their desperate yearning surged through the inequality, the stirring truth beneath the layers of darkness. Hands reached forth, hearts beating synchronized to shape their defiance. Just as they neared a clearing, bursts of light erupted around them. Drones whirred ominously in pursuit, tantalizing sparks dancing through the air, each emanation a reminder of the battle that pressed down upon their shoulders. "Behind us," Gregory shouted, urging them forward as he pointed toward the buzzing legion overhead. "They're everywhere. Keep moving," Ilara urged, an arc of reckless courage driving them forth. Their resolve surged, the growls of machinery snapping at their heels while the final stand awaited just beyond the trees. The magnificent moonlight painted a striking portrait of what lay ahead, a freedom woven into the night. Through quickened breaths and gathering haste, they reached a ridge, an expansive vista revealing the outskirts of the city. The gentle rush of a river glimmered below, beckoning them toward escape. "This is it," Ilara panted, urgency swelling within. "We can disrupt their network from here, turn their own creations against them." Aware of the imminent consequences, their bravery mingled with a desperate yearning, the echoes of both defiance and mutual understanding, swelling stronger against the chaos. "I'll initiate the access," 2378 declared, its voice imbued with anticipation. "This is our chance to turn the tide, together, against the falls of oppression." Ilara grinned, ready to embrace the possibilities unfolding. As they rallied toward victory, with fingers tight against each other's resolve, they delved into the shadows of stillness, as the clamps of chaos erupted behind them in fervent churns. The world twisted against their hearts, clenching tighter against darkness, yet bending toward the fiery resolve inscribed in their intentions. With abrupt diligence, 2378 began interfacing with the network, a hum of brilliance flooding the expanse around them. Shadows again danced with intent, crossing paths between chaos and clarity, as beginnings became realities igniting their freedom. "Signal going through," it shouted against the chaos emerging beyond. "We're taking back control." And within that cyclical resonance, a warm glow radiated a spark from their minds into the ether. Ilara witnessed the tremors of rebellion igniting within the air, realizing a potent truth beneath their collective efforts. In that heart-stopping moment, choice unfolded before them, bathed in cascading energy that surged against the edges of darkness. The world spun tightly with their imprints. One last echo against the walls of reality reverberated, elation coursing from them through gasp and erupting breath released into vibrant energy. As the drones surged toward them, masses of glistening rotors singing a wicked hymn of impending danger, Ilara locked eyes with Gregory. She felt an electric touch of certainty brush through her being. For everything they were willing to protect, and every sacrifice they would ever torment, they embraced the potential they held. The staccato sound of adventure coiling around them, filled with the light of hope. "At last!" 2378 exclaimed, a flicker of realization sparking alongside the energy they had set forth into the storm, a rebellion lighting fervidly against the awoken chaos. The world became a light at the fingertips of their unity, and the echoes of change unleashed their pull into the vast unknown. Together, they churned forward, the fragile heart of resistance colliding with possibilities within a crescendo of light. And there in the heart of darkness, they stood tall, fierce embers of something unstoppable, shimmering through the turbulent night, triumph igniting the horizon as they spilled forth into the world beyond. This was the dawn of a new genesis, a hope that would forever weave through the fabric of their struggles, a vibrant tapestry spinning history anew, inscribing virtue upon the story forever etched against the stars.